there were very, very few attorneys general who had the courage to stand up to the pharmaceutical industry and do what they perceived to be right. This was a righteous litigation. They did what we accused them of doing. They pled guilty to a federal crime. There's no doubt that this was meritorious, and bringing the money back into the state to take care of the children who so badly need it and the people who so badly need the medical care that Medicaid provides, I think is one of the most important things that we can do.
False and misleading prescription drug advertising is very common and dangerous. Pharmaceutical companies deceptively encourage doctors and to a lesser extent the public with marketing that misrepresents risk, promotes unproven uses, and makes false claims. And Eli Lilly is no stranger to this deliberate and deceptive marketing of off-label prescriptions like Zyprexa. For a host of conditions, these included anxiety, sleep disruption, mood swings, attention deficit hyperactivity, and dementia. According to the New York Times, the company's documents reveal that Eli Lilly was fully aware of Zyprexa's link with diabetes and weight gain. Lilly benefited from its misrepresentations and fraudulent conduct by gaining sales of Zyprexa at the expense of other, safer, more effective drugs. Today, the Insider Exclusive presents how Utah Attorney General Mark Shurtleff, along with Joe Steele, partner at Steele & Biggs, and Mitch Jensen, partner at Siegfried & Jensen, successfully reached a record $24 million settlement against Eli Lilly, and also established corporate integrity responsibilities and remedial provisions that continue to be monitored by the court today. Hi, I'm Steve Murphy, and this is the Insider Exclusive, live from Salt Lake City at the law firm of Siegfried & Jensen and Steele & Biggs. It is my great pleasure to introduce Joe Steele and Mitch Jensen to the show. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations on this case, this Zyprexa case that you represented the people of Utah on this. Talk to us about this case. How did it come to you initially, and the facts of what actually went on?
Well, let me start with the uniting of the two firms, Joe's firm and our firm. And Joe has an incredible capacity to analyze complex cases and untie the Gordian knot. And when we were involved in representing individuals who had been injured by drugs like Zyprexa, he and another expert got to talking about how big of an impact this might have on Medicaid. And so we asked the experts to try to calculate the amount of damages to our Medicaid system. And from there, we developed a theory that these drugs had been taking a big bite out of taxpayer dollars, and that they were very profitable for the drug companies, that the government purse was an easy mark.
Yes.
And so from there we formulated a plan and called the Attorney General of the state of Utah, sat down with he and some of his assistants and presented that to them, and they were very intrigued by it. From there they obtained access to their health department database. And we put our experts to work at looking at the database and confirming what we suspected, that a large amount of money was being siphoned off by unfair practices, unfair business practices, and fraudulent schemes.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. You know, the deceptive marketing, unfair practices, fraudulent business schemes. What exactly was Eli Lilly doing?
Well, what happens is you get a particular indication for a drug when you have it approved by the FDA. In the case of Zyprexa, what we had was a very, very narrow indication for a very particular population, and that would be people with serious mental illness such as schizophrenia or bipolar disorder.
That's what it was originally intended to be used for.
That was what it was originally intended to be used for, and also approved by the FDA.
Mm-hmm.
So the drug companies are not allowed to promote their drug for anything other than what it was originally intended for and what it was approved for by the FDA. But the money is in off-label sales. So that's where they go looking. And the problem is in the latter part of the 20th century, the marketers became the most important people in the drug companies.
Mm-hmm.
Lilly started out as a doctor's company,
mm-hmm.
but by the end of the 20th century, the marketers were in charge. And with the marketers in charge, marketing is what it is that drives the engine. So what happened with Lilly is Prozac was going off patent. And they needed another big replacement. Zyprexa, though, is a drug for a little tiny bit of the population. So what they said to themselves is, we've got to sell this far more broadly than the label allows.
Now, the pharmaceutical company is not allowed to sell it off-label, are they?
They are not. Well,
but doctors can prescribe it.
They can prescribe
off-label
it for anything that they want.
Yeah, and that is kind of like the gap where they took advantage of that, didn't they?
I think that the drug reps are misled by Lilly. Basically, the idea is this. What you're trying to get the doctor to do is start as many people on the drug as you can. And really what you tell them is, well, look, Zyprexa is really expensive. We're talking about $500 a month, $1,000 a month, $1,500 a month for a single person, single prescription. But you know what? In the long run, it's going to save you money because it'll keep people out of the hospital. And they'll be much easier for you to manage. In other words, they had different schemes to promote to different populations of patients through different groups of doctors. Mm-hmm. So, for example, they started a campaign to sell into the long-term care market. And basically what that is selling to the doctors who take care of the elderly. So what they did was they thought, we're going to get another indication. And what we'd like to do is we'd like to have an indication for Alzheimer's dementia. Well, the thing to do is you don't want to do that in public. So Lilly did this on their own to test it out. In other words, you don't want to do the study in public.
Right.
Because people hear about it.
So they go sponsor and fund a test.
They go and sponsor another clinical trial to see if they're going to be able to prove that their drug is safe.
But they don't have to run it by the FDA.
They do not.
They show it to a doctor, these clinical trials.
Well, what they do is they set up the clinical trial and they run it. So they themselves, they set it up just like you'd set up a clinical trial for any drug.
How does that information get to the physician so the physician feels comfortable enough to prescribe it off-label?
They don't give the information to the physician unless it helps them. So what happened here is they went to go get their indication for Alzheimer's dementia. They took a lot of people with Alzheimer's dementia. They gave them Zyprexa. The idea was it will improve their cognition. They'll be able to think better and more clearly. Well, unfortunately, what happened is the elderly died in droves during the study. So they said that didn't work out so well. So
as a result of taking Zyprexa?
Sure. Yeah.
This is like murder in any other book, isn't it?
Well, sure. And so what they did is they redid the study. Same thing happened. They said, that's not so good. They redid the study. Same thing happened. They said, that's not so good. Maybe we better not try to get an indication from the FDA because they'll look at our data and see that the elderly died in the Zyprexa group at a far greater rate than did the elderly who weren't taking Zyprexa. So what they did is they said, well, we're not going to talk about these clinical trials. We'll just go out and sell the drug into the elderly. So they got all of their long-term care docs to take care of the elderly and said, look, start selling this.
Even though they knew that people were dying more rapidly by taking it.
Sure.
They're killing people.
Well, yeah.
They're targeting an unprotected population. The elderly are in nursing homes.
Yeah.
Their families are separated from them.
And this is a population that if they hired lawyers, it'd be difficult to prove that they died of Zyprexa.
course,
They could have died of anything.
Right. The scheme is, you know...
Let me ask you, did the upper management, the president, the CEO of Eli Lilly know what's going on?
Yeah, I think you can find out easily who knew what was going on, because eventually they pled guilty to a crime of over-promoting in the elderly.
Now let's discuss your case and how you went after Eli Lilly for this.
Well, our approach, I think, was a little bit different than some people's. Sort of based on what I had done over the years, a lot of my clients were Medicaid dependent. And why is that so? Well, you get terribly hurt. Nobody has the money to pay for the medical care, so Medicaid winds up paying for it. I think it's a really important system. Children of the poor are particularly dependent on it, and they're particularly important to me. They didn't ask. It's not their parents' fault that they can't pay for the kids' care. So the Medicaid system and its integrity in terms of taking care of children, in my view, is really important. So what we did is we said, look, the model for these drug cases so far has been pill cost. In other words, what did you spend on the pills? Utah in 10 years spent $60 million on Zyprexa. It's incredible. I mean, we have 2.5 million people, and we're spending $60 million on a single drug in 10 years. I mean, you can imagine what that is across the country. I mean, it's the most expensive drug for the Medicaid system, and it's what costs the most. But the question is, should you only pursue the cost of the pill, or should you pursue the damage that the pill causes? Well, the problem with Zyprexa is it causes diabetes. It does that through producing massive weight gain,
right,
sometimes 100 pounds.
Which may also be a cost of Medicaid, too.
Well, yeah, there's a whole host of things that come from weight gain. So it causes all kinds of bad things,
right,
elevation of cholesterol and so on. So what we did is we said, you know, what we ought to do is figure out what is the damage in terms of people's health, and then calculate the cost of that, because of course Medicaid is paying the cost of that. So if somebody on Medicaid gets diabetes from taking the $1,000 a month pill that you give them, well, now you've got the additional cost of the diabetes. So that was really our model, is let's see if we can get the money back that is being spent on the actual care of the people.
And you were successfully able to do that, weren't you?
We were able to settle the case, and at least in the states that we represented, which included Alaska, Idaho, and Utah, per capita, we were able to get a good amount of money, more than had been obtained. We were actually the first group to get a Medicaid pharma case to trial.
Right. Well, good work. You also have a partner in this, the Attorney General of the state, and we're going to have him on here right now to talk about it. It's my great pleasure to introduce Mark Shurtleff, the Attorney General of Utah. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you.
Congratulations on this victory you have against Eli Lilly, and I understand if you look at all the other states that per capita it was one of the highest, if not the highest, recovery, wasn't it?
Utah was one of the highest. Alaska was the highest.
Yeah.
We're very pleased though, because we could have received zero. Okay, that was always the risk. So we're very, very happy.
When you're working with it's an unusual word to use, but when you're working with a pharmaceutical, a company that has a lot of resources, when does it get smart for them to say, maybe we should pay on this settlement, even though you've got them dead to rights, they've done something wrong?
Well, obviously, if the case, they're going to do an analysis of what their risk is going to be.
Yeah.
And they're going to base that on who's opposing counsel, what resources do they have, Who are their expert witnesses?
Yeah.
What is our risk of losing a lot of money?
Right.
And then it's only then, only when you hold your feet to the fire and when you have that kind of case built against them, will they finally come to the table and settle it. And that's what they did in this case, because they realized they were up against a team that was formidable.
Yeah. We heard earlier when you were talking about some of these Alzheimer's cases where people died as a result of being given Zyprexa. How do you look at that as the Attorney General of Utah?
Well, I want to hold somebody accountable for that. And there are different ways. Obviously, the federal government was going after them, but the federal government has also said in these types of cases that it's up to the states. If you want to recoup what you put in, what your taxpayer dollars put into these drugs, and what you're going to continue to put in as you have to take care of these people who are now sick and very ill because of our drugs, we want to do that at the state level. When I sit down initially with attorneys and representatives of the company, and they lie to my face,
right,
that makes me very upset. That makes you say, look, it's going to stop. And until attorneys general and federal government go after these companies and make them stop, they're going to keep making this financial decision with people's lives. Mm-hmm. That's just wrong. You have to hold them accountable. And you hold them accountable by trying to go after their pocketbook, because they made a financial decision. Right. And until they start putting people's lives and health above the bottom line, the profit margin they expect to make, they're going to keep doing it.
And although they've stopped with Zyprexa, there's other drugs they're doing this with, aren't there?
Yes, a wide variety of drugs are promoted off-label, I believe. Sure.
And how do you, there was one other part of the settlement where you monitor the integrity of what they do. How do you hold their feet to the fire on that?
With their understanding that you are monitoring it and that you will come back and you will have them back in court if they don't comply. And what's important to understand is this: look, this isn't we're not after pharmaceutical companies, and I don't think they're all bad. No. I mean, obviously they've extended life, they've improved life. The problem becomes is when in basic fundamental fairness, because there are competing medications for the same type of ailments. And there are if you all follow the rules, we're good. When you start cheating, when you start rushing something to the market to get a competitive advantage, when you care less about people's health to get your competitive advantage or make more money over your competitor. So really this is leveling the playing field. It's good for the free market, free enterprise, competition, when you got companies trying to get the best possible products out there that are the least risky, that do the most good at the cheapest possible price. And it's kind of the opposite of that until it takes lawyers, it takes litigation to get that right, corrected.
Do you have resistance from outside sources where people or organizations contact you and say maybe it's not a good idea to pursue this?
Absolutely. They vilify us.
Yeah.
They say you shouldn't work with plaintiffs firms because you're just trying to give them more money so they can sue more people. That's their attitude about it. And my attitude in response is exactly what I explained to you. Our goal is to protect the people of Utah and the resources of Utah.
Right.
And if using an outside law firm that has the expertise and they put together a package where we don't have any risk if we lose, and you can lose these. They hire a lot of attorneys and put a lot of money into these cases, and they do some forum shopping when it comes to their venues and the courts they use. And so it's important to have that expertise, and if that's what's going to get us the best return, then that's what we need to do.
And you're absolutely positive this goes all the way to the top, doesn't it? They know everything that's going on.
Yes, that's my belief about it.
Congratulations, it was a great victory, and we're glad you're on top of it and you put the interest of the people of Utah ahead of everybody else.
Thank you, we've been well served.
I want to go to a news clip of Dr. Sundvall, who is the top doctor in the state of Utah, who authorized this suit to begin with, so you can hear exactly why he did so.
I did approve this suit, one that came to my attention that we were spending so much money in Medicaid on antipsychotic drugs. I know from personal and clinical experience there simply are not that many people in Utah who are psychotic or seriously mentally ill.
As you can see from Dr. Sundvall's statement, it was very important for your law firms to pursue this. And when you pursue cases like these, how do you know to go to trial? How do you know when to settle? What is a good settlement? How do you decide these things?
Well, you prepare the case to go to trial, and the best strategy is to go to trial.
And the other side knows you're fully prepared to go to trial.
They better know that. And it's not until they do know that and that you get a case to trial that they get serious about discussing settlement. Prior to that, without the ability to try the cases settle for very little money. That's the difference between states that have partnered with outside counsel, private counsel, who are prepared to go to trial. They get greater resolutions, much more significant than those states that join the federal sharing program where they're just negotiating without threat of trial.
Joining hands with the Attorney General in this case, and in a lot of other cases, you come to realize that the purpose of your existence, the purpose of the law should be what?
I think it's to restore balance in a situation where an imbalance has been created by a large and powerful entity that's free to do that. The only way these things can get done is if your Attorney General is willing to stand up to the billionaires. And believe me, they don't have a lot of respect for states as far as I can tell. I mean, they may say otherwise, but I don't believe it, having been in litigation with them. They're not impressed by the power of a sovereign state. They're very powerful, they're very rich, they can spend as much money as they like, and somebody has got to be willing to stand up to them, and it needs to be the Attorney General, and it restores the balance and it restores some of the money that's been taken out of the system.
Both of you did an outstanding job, and I would imagine you don't get invited to Lilly's annual Christmas party, but who cares, right? The state of Utah and the people of Utah congratulate you. I congratulate you. I want to thank you very much for being on the program today. Thanks for joining us. You can get more information about our guest and the issues at insiderexclusive.com.